Mewtwo EX decks have been incredibly powerful since the launch of TCG Pocket. But now, with the addition of Mew and other support cards in the Mythical Island expansion, this deck is now better than ever, bringing more versatility and a counter to unfavorable matchups. So let's talk about it. This deck has an absurd amount of damage. Mewtwo EX is a nuke, and it can deal 150 damage consistently every turn with the help of Gardevoir. Adding in a Mew allows you to counter things like Charizard and other heavy hitters by using their own moves against them. It's also very good for whenever you're playing the mirror match, as it helps versus opposing Mewtwo's as well. Cards like Mythic Slab also increase the consistency, and also all your main attackers are basic Pokemon, so you don't have to worry about evolving your main damage dealers. However, this deck does rely on setting up Gardevoir, which can take a bit. Failing to set up Gardevoir early can make this deck run kind of slow, as Mewtwo will only be able to attack every 2 turns. And because of this, the energy costs are pretty brutal. However, this deck is still incredible, and a top deck in the meta for a reason. So let's talk about the build. For your items, go with 2 Pokeball to get your Mewtwo out as early as possible, as well as to start setting up Ralts. X-Speed is very handy for when you need to swap out for Mew in order to counter something. And Mythical Slab allows you to get your Pokemon set up as early as possible. For your supporters, go with 2 Professor's Research, 2 Leaf, 1 Sabrina, and 1 Giovanni. These are all pretty self-explanatory, but are all incredibly useful within this deck. Now for your Pokemon, you want to go with 2 Mewtwo EX, 1 Mew EX, and 2 of each for the Gardevoir lineup. Mewtwo is obviously your main attacker here, and it will deal with 90% of your opponent's Pokemon. If you get a good hand and you're able to set up Gardevoir by your 3rd turn, Mewtwo can take out pretty much anything, since Gardevoir gives it an extra energy to fire off a side drive earlier than usual. Mew is your revenge killer and your main counter to other powerful EX Pokemon. If your opponent has a Charizard, or if you're playing the mirror matchup and you're up against another Mewtwo, Mew will really shine in these situations. Being able to come in as a revenge killer and take out any big threats is why Mew is just so good in this deck. And finally, the gear that makes this deck run, Gardevoir. Despite not being an attacker, Psyshadow literally makes this deck. Without that extra energy every turn, Mewtwo would not be able to attack every turn, and it would take 3 turns for Mew to set up. So really, your main goal when playing this deck is to get Gardevoir up and running as soon as possible. If you're running a Mewtwo EX deck, let me know what build you like the most.